You cannot tell me that you don't remember a good story. Hey guys, how's it going? Tony Zig over here. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 4 effects that storytelling has on your audience, the importance of storytelling. So in one of my past videos, I explained how storytelling is basically the art of telling, developing, and adapting a story by using characters, ambient, conflict, and a message. The main idea behind storytelling is to to transmit a message through a story that establishes a strong emotional connection with your audience. And that story is also going to help make your audience imagine and visualize the point that you're trying to make, that relevant point that you're trying to explain to them, that lesson, that valuable lesson that you're teaching them. And through a very good story, this is never going to be forgotten, right? It's going to live in their minds forever. Right, so without further ado, these are the 4 effects that storytelling has on your audience. The very first effect is a good story is going to take your audience through a journey. So if you structure your content in a way in which you connect the dots, in a way in which you create this thread of ideas, that's going to attract your audience, and that's going to make your audience want to, form part of the story. If you take into account the journey and the experience that you want to give your target audience, that's going to make them, want to form part of this journey, and it's going to make them feel like the main character that's going through this journey, and they're going to feel extremely identified with it. So a perfect example for this is the perfect example of this is a story about a man named Jared Fogle, right? So Jared Fogle was a guy from the US that, many years ago was an obese man. This guy, I think, weighed over 400 pounds. And the thing is that this guy lost around 245 pounds just by eating Subway sandwiches. Right? So Subway took note of this, and he was the face of Subway for 15 years, from the year 2000 up to the year 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And that made Subway gain millions of dollars of because of selling their sandwiches through the story of Jared Fogle. Through that story of that man, that overweight man, over 400 pounds, that just by eating Subway sandwiches lost more than half his weight, 245 pounds, right? And this was the face of Subway for 15 years. And why was it so successful? Well, because Jared, this overweight man, a lot of people out there identified with this overweight man. Why? Because they were having the same problem. They were Jared. They felt like they were Jared, right? So this made them eat Subway, live a healthier life and lose all that weight. The story of Jared inspired millions of people that were passing through that same situation, that overweight situation. And of course, like I said, it made Subway earn millions of dollars, by selling their sandwiches to the public and placing themselves as a healthier option within the fast food industry, right? People felt identified, and people felt like the main character in Jared's story, right? So that's the effect number 1 of storytelling. Effect number 2 would be your audience will feel identified with a good story. So there's this English author named Neil. There's this English author named Neil Gaiman, right? And he once said this, and I'm paraphrasing it, of course, but he once said that if you read the story at the right moment, you will never forget it. Doesn't matter if you forgot the title. I think there's a plane there's a helicopter passing by there. Well, like I was saying, Neil Gaiman said that if you read a story at the right moment, doesn't matter. Well, sorry, if you read a story at the right moment, doesn't matter if doesn't matter if you forgot the title, doesn't matter if you forgot the author, doesn't matter if you forgot exactly what happened. If you felt identified with that story is going to live within you forever. Right? It's going to live within you forever. And the thing with this, the reason for this being is because if you identify yourself, for example, with the main character, and you live, and if you feel identified with the story, with the message of the story, and with the story of the main character that's experiencing it, you're going to live the same experiences that character. You're going to feel, like you're that character, and you're going to be experiencing and feeling feeling that like that character, experiencing all the pains, all the pleasures, all the obstacles, all the hard decisions. You're going to experience that fulfillment after facing a strong conflict, and you're going to have hope as your main source of strength, right? As that main source of strength that made you, get through those hard and tough times. A great example of this would be Life is Beautiful. If you haven't seen it yet, I recommend you do. It's a very strong and very sad movie about a family during World War II, a Jewish family during World War II that are taken to a death camp. And it tells the story of this father and his son that get into this death camp together, and in order to protect his son from all the cruelty that was around and from that awful reality, the father used humor and playfulness, humor and games to create that parallel reality for his son, and make him pass through those very tough times without difficulty, right? It's a very sad movie. It's one of the best movies I've watched, and it's an extremely sad movie. And I'm not a father, but for those people, for people out there who are fathers and even mothers as well, they will feel identified, especially fathers in this case. They're going to feel extremely identified with this role, and they're actually going to feel like that main character. They're going to step into that main character's shoes, and live the struggles, live the the pleasures, live the conflicts, the obstacles that he as a father in that movie had to pass through. They're going to feel that in that movie they are that father, and the son in that movie is their own son. It's going to establish that strong connection that is going to make them feel so identified with the main character that they almost feel like they're the main character and that they're living the story that's going on in the movie, right? Like I said, it's an extremely sad and hard movie to watch, but I recommend this movie to you guys because it's really, the message is so strong and so beautiful that it's really breathtaking. And needless to say, it won a lot of awards, and had a lot of recognition, right? A lot of recognition. So that was effect number 2. Effect number 3 would be stories. Good stories trigger emotions within us. Good stories trigger emotions, and I'm going to use the same example of Life is Beautiful because, like I said, it's a very sad movie, and that the emotions that one can experience through watching that story, through watching that that father with his son in this death camp, and how his father was covering the whole reality with humor and with games, and putting everything into a perspective that was appropriate, and not only appropriate but fun and innocent for his son. All the emotions that you start feeling because of that are huge, and it's actually a bit overwhelming what you start feeling when watching that, right? It triggers emotions, and when someone gets emotionally involved in your story, and when someone gets emotionally involved in something, they will really feel identified, they will feel connected, and they will never forget that story that they were told, or in this case, that movie, the story of that movie that they were told, right? That they watched in this case, right? So yeah, I mean, that's the strength. That's the power of good stories. So sorry about that. That's the power of good stories, right? And the fourth and final effect is the fourth and final effect is stories can seduce us. Can easily seduce us. Stories can easily seduce us. And the reason for this being is because stories are part of a human, of human history, of our nature as humans. Ever since we exist, stories have formed a strong and very important part of humanity. Our whole lives we live through stories, Our whole lives, we've been told stories from ages ago, stories from many, even thousands of years ago. Stories that involved other people, stories that communicated messages from, like I said, thousands of years ago. A great example of this, for example, is, the Bible. The Bible is a good example of this. It's a great example of this, how it tells the stories of, Jesus Christ, all the things he went through. And it applies with other religions as well. I don't know if you pronounce this, if this is pronounced correctly, but the Quran as well. And again, it tells the story of that religion, and those stories were passed through throughout time. So it's part of a human nature, and as it's part of our human nature, and as we feel so connected and so involved with good stories, that's something that we have to apply in our businesses through storytelling, right? So guys, that's been it for this one. To summarize it, the 4 effects of storytelling are: you take your target audience through a journey, right? Your audience can feel identified with that story, can feel really identified with that story. Stories, very good, good stories trigger emotions. And finally, good stories, stories can easily seduce us, right? So if you apply storytelling for your business, for your online business, regarding which stage you're at, you're going to, not only see growth, but you're going to attract, your prospects and create a very strong relationship with them that is going to define the longevity of your online business, right? So guys, that's been it for this one. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, guys, I'm starting a community, an online community. It's basically a private Facebook group where I'm sharing tips, tricks, where I'm going to be sharing content that will help you out if you're either starting an online business from scratch, as well as, wanting to scale your current online business, right? So guys, that's been it. Sorry about that. Guys, that's been it for this one. Hope you liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care and keep on hustling.